Okay, so as you get started, um, you're going to have to start kind of thinking about how you're going to. Now, so what I've done is I've actually modeled this for already. So I'm going to show you briefly how to kind of, I got started on this, and then that maybe will help you kind of conceptualize how to do this. So the interesting thing about this project, or about this process, is that there's so many ways to think about this. I could think about this in terms of these lines. You know, I have a line here, line here, line here, and lines that go around here, lines. Or I can think about this in terms of planes. I have this kind of big plane here that's a shape, and this plane here that's the same shape but smaller, you know, and one in between. And then I have this plane here and these kind of planes. Or I can start to think about this as forms, a cylinder and a kind of big box form here, and all the ways of subdividing this thing. So as you do this, you're going to have to start to think, okay, well, what's the way I want to do this? And then you're going to have to match that with software. What are the capabilities of the software? And Anya is just kind of discovering that one of the capabilities she thought was there is not available, which kind of stinks, but that's how it is. So there are other ways to do this, other ways to build this up and create things. So one thing I wanted to make sure you guys are thinking about is measurements. You're going to need to measure your objects. So I have a box here that is about 9.5 by 5 by 2.5. Okay, so measure your objects so you keep them in proportion. All right. Now, when you do this, you're going to want to make this little image I'm about to show you here. So I'm going to share my screen. So you're going to make an image that looks kind of like this. So you're going to put the fake one next to the real one in virtual reality. And I'll show you that next week. It's pretty easy, but you can see these are the ones I modeled for you. Now, it's not the best quality in the picture, but the model quality is better. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to make sure this is saved, and I'm going to go back to my menu, my home, and we're going to look at the case with the switches. So this is that model here. So here's that model that I modeled for. It's got the little switches on the back. It's got the buttons on the top. It's got the little power port on the side. And it's got that bevel to the case around the edges here, the kind of rounded edges. So I'm going to show you that, especially the rounded parts next week. But you can get started. So I looked at this and I thought, okay, well, how am I going to get started with this? And there's lots of ways. But in this case, I may start with this form here. Okay, and that gives me kind of an overview of the form. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you how to make this form. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to leave that open. I'm not finished that shape, and I'm going to draw my set my dimensions. So 9.5 comma was it 5? I think 5. Now I've got this subdivided into 2 sections, but I've also got these beveled edges. So I'm going to go in and actually make those beveled edges. I've already measured this about 1 inch in. So I'm going to go into this. And what I'll do is I need to define an inch space. I can do that a lot of ways. I can come in with a rectangle box, and I can go from this corner. I can go over 1 inch. I'm looking at my measurement box right now. I can go over 1 inch and then go up 1 inch. Like that, 1 by 1. I can just take a line tool. I can draw 1 inch in like this and just click on that once and draw 1 inch over this way and click on that once. That gives me 2 points in there. If I hover my tool, you're going to see it actually locks onto that point. So I've made a line on top of this plane, but you can't see it, but the computer knows it's there. Then I can grab my arc tool. Okay, if I want to do it in this section, I can like start from here, draw over to that one, and then draw this up. And you're going to see if I come up just enough, let's zoom in a little bit. Of course, as soon as I do a demo, it doesn't want to work. It's not giving me a tangent to that side. Something like that. That's not perfect, but it's pretty close. Inside that box, let's try it over here. So now I'm going to hover over, find that spot where it's an inch. That's the end point of that. I'm going to stick my piece to the other side. Now, you can see that when it turns magenta, it says tangent at vertex. So I'm going to click on that, click once more. Now I have a perfect circle, perfect quarter of a circle there that flows directly from that line off. Now, the cool thing about this arc tool is that I can go do that again over there, but I can also just come over here. If I haven't done anything since I made that arc, come over here and double click in that corner. Oops. Like I said, of course, it's not working. And it'll redo that arc in the corner, just like that. So let's go over here and take this off. Whoops. Let's take this one off. I'm going to clear this one out and make sure I did this right. Come over, draw a line at 1, get my arc tool, find that end point, and draw that line over till that turns magenta. And then erase that outside. So now, whoops. Now I've got my rounded rectangle. So now I can come in, okay, I can start to think how to build that up. I can come drag up, go 1.5. I've already measured this, so it's 1.5 up for the first section. It's a 1/4 inch in, then an inch up. So I can come in and grab my offset, come in and go in 1/4 of an inch, and then grab my push-pull tool, and whoops, and come up 1 inch like that. So now I've got a good start on that. All right. So where would I go from here? Well, I'd start to look at the details. Okay. For you guys, probably I would say start working the little details. Then we'll come back in and make these beveled edges, these rounded corners, and other things like that. Now, if you look at this, I have this little switch here. You can see that that's a combination of a cylinder, a polygon, another cylinder there, and then a taper, a cone. Okay, that sort of makes that little knob. So I might like take this detail and make it off the thing. So I would come in and do something like this, where I take a circle, I measure that probably a 1/4 of an inch or so. Actually, the radius is a little less than that. So radius is probably 3/16. So I'm going to break this down into different shapes. So I'm going to come down here and grab the polygon. Now notice I found the center by hovering my mouse around until it says I'm at the center. I'm going to draw out that polygon. And unfortunately, it's the number of sides is wrong. So I'm going to have to go up and let's see, option minus like that. I still didn't do it. Option minus. Am I hitting the right one? Anyways, so that's going to allow me to start to make that nut. And then there's another cylinder coming up out of that. So I would come in again and draw another little cylinder in there. So I start with that kind of form, and then I can start to explode this out by using push-pull. Come up, come up, come up. Now, this thing only locks at 1/16 of an inch. So you have to be careful about that. If you're working too small, this is why I said earlier, you can think about blowing your stuff up. Okay, so I find that's a problem. I can always stop that, what I'm doing. I can come and select this whole thing, blow it up, oops, select the whole thing, and try this again. There, wouldn't select it. And then expand this up like that. Now I should be able to come in with the push-pull tool, which is under here, and change how that works, like that. So the proportions look right better there, right? And then I can come out. Let me move this out of the way a little bit better. Now I can come on top of this and put another circle from the center of this piece. Now, if you're having problems finding the center, we can use some inference points. So I'm going to deselect. I'm going to grab my line tool, and I'm going to draw a line through the center of this object like that. Now I definitely have a center that I can grab onto. So sometimes you have to make other lines. So I can do this one and then come out from this like that. Now I have these extra lines in here. I can erase those because I still have a plane. Unfortunately, that erased that underneath. So I'm going to leave those for right now. And sometimes you're going to see that that's part of that planes right now. So I'm going to leave that right now. I'm going to come up and grab my push-pull tool, build that up. Now I can grab a line tool, come across here, do that, erase these. Like that. Okay, so this has a taper to it. You see how I'm kind of combining these tools up together? I'm going to grab my scale tool, scale this face. Now, one trick here, I don't know if I showed you this already, is to hold the Option key and it'll scale it around the middle. It allows me to scale that around the middle. So now I have a good kind of view of the switch. So I can take this, I can select it, scale it back down. Whoops. This one, scale. Sometimes SketchUp does not want to stay. Scale it back down. Get it down to the right scale. So I'm actually going to make this a group. Hopefully you guys can make groups still. By right clicking on it, I'm going to group these things together. Now I can move it a little easier. Like this. Okay, so I need this over here. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Remember how to do that. Did I show you guys? I showed you guys how to rotate, right? You guys still with me?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. I'm going to click, drag, rotate that 90 degrees. Now I'm going to grab my move tool again, move it over here like that, and then move it up. So it'll start to look something like that. Okay, you see how I get started on this?
Yep.
So now I'm going to go back and show you the other objects. So you can see I tapered these in by doing something like this, where I took, what I did was I took my scale tool here and I put it on this plane. And then I scaled it around the center like that. And that beveled that side. Okay. Notice I can do that underneath as well. I'm going to double click on that to select that face and the edge. Click the scale tool. Now I can scale this one around as well. Unfortunately, it's going to do some weirdness there, so I might have to scale that and then go back and rescale the top one. So just kind of play. You got to kind of play, and don't be worried about doing that. And then you end up with something like that. Okay. So now I'm starting to get some stuff. Now notice that then left that out in space, so I have to move that back so it's against there. So I'm starting to get some good, some good form here. I'm going to go. So remember, sometimes you have to save this stuff. So you have to get up here and hit the save button. It auto saves, but it's a good thing to save too. This is all online. So if it's gone, it's gone. I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you the rock. So I started doing this rock, which is in here. Down here. So you can see kind of what I did is I drew a box. I put these rock pictures on. I'll show you how to do that next week, but this is that organic object. You're only going to get so organic with this without going to the desktop version. And honestly, I actually used a bunch of solid tools on this, which you guys can't do. So I'm gonna have to work into that. So if you guys have an object that's too organic, it might be advisable to maybe rethink that, or to think about doing it in a different way. So if you start making polygons, you can start drawing, you can start by drawing these forms and kind of building up. A lot of people use the, I don't know why it's doing that. A lot of people use the, whoops, I screwed that up. You see what I did? You see how it's all wonky? I didn't go up from that. I didn't match that axis with this second line here. So you can just, whoops, not erase that one, erase this one. Erase that one, erase that one. Erase that little one there. You can start to build things. Getting some weirdness in there. Even I get frustrated on this sometimes. All right, so what I'm going to do is, obviously the easier way I should have done that is dump that, grab that. Okay. So I can come in here and start cutting this apart and start manipulating it. Let me erase this line here. So you can do things like draw a line. So I start to look at the shape of the rock, draw a line across. Then I can take my move tool, start to come in here. Oh, it's not square. Don't be afraid to start over. How's that for advice? This is going to be easier. It's going to work if I do it with a rectangle, which I didn't start with. There we go. Now, what I was trying to show is how to take this, draw a line across that, grab the move tool, and kind of move this in. Okay. And what you can do with that is start to create a little bit of that shape. So if I grab this one, I'm looking here. Grab another one. Grab another one. And then grab the move tool. Come in. You see how I'm starting to kind of replicate that shape?
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of ways you can do that and start to cut things off. So even though you can't use the solids, you can, or we assume that, and we'll find out. There's other ways you can do that. You can do things like, and this is a little bit advanced, but for those of you who need it, one thing you can do is you can draw a plane. And you can rotate that plane. So I'm going to double click to select the plane. I'm going to grab the rotation tool, put it on the corner, make sure I'm rotating around the right one, which is that one. I'm going to rotate this plane like that. Now I'm going to move that plane. And I'm going to intersect with that model there, like that. Now, notice if you look here real close, you're going to see there's not a line there in between that. If I delete that plane, you're not going to see anything there. What I want to do here is select everything. So I'll come over here from a good view and select everything by drawing my box with my selection tool. And I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to say intersect faces with selection. So what you're going to see now is that once I come around with my eraser tool, it's going to allow me to erase this off. You're going to see these lines on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to erase that line, that, whoops, not that one. There. Can I erase that? Yeah, I can erase that one. And erase that line as well. So now you've seen that I've started to make a complex form that way. So you can see that there's all sorts of ways you can start to, you see that? You can start to modify that. Let's see what happens if I do, and some of this I don't even know what's going to happen. If I come in here and make a line like that, and then grab the move tool, it may do something, it may not, and then drop back. Yeah, it did. So you can start to build complexity that way. So see, it's a little more in depth, a little more complicated to make these organic shapes, especially if you don't have the solid tools to work with. So think about how you're going to start this. You know, what are the ways to start? You guys that are doing stuff that is kind of bulgy and more spherical, you're going to have to kind of imagine this in a different way. Remember, if you get stuck with something like this, the view, come in here and hit this button like there. If you look here, you see this guy? There's no way to kind of make that from a cone without using specialized tools in here, which we don't have access to. But there are some other ways to think about this, and this is a bit advanced, but some of you guys are going to really need to explore this, and that's the Follow Me tool. Before I show that, are there any questions so far? All right. So there's a tool in here called Follow Me. It lives under the push-pull tool. It's this guy here. What that does is the Follow Me allows you to take a shape and then take that shape and extrude it along a path, whether it's a straight path or a curved path. So what that means is if I draw a line, let me take the, well, let's draw a straight line. If I draw a straight line like that, and on the edge of that line, I draw a shape. I'm going to rotate around here. Use my, well, let's use a circle. Put a circle here. I'm going to make sure that circle is perpendicular to that line by clicking the left arrow, clicking and dragging like that. All right, so what I end up with is a circle with a line coming out of it. If I select this line, it's a very specific sequence of stuff here. If I select this line and then go over here and select the follow me tool and then click on the circle, it's supposed to automatically do that. So let me try it again. Select the line, select the follow me tool, and select the circle. It will extrude that circle out along that line. Now that looks like a cylinder I made. There's easier ways to make a cylinder, but what that allows you to do is to make a complex line like an arc. Like that. Now let's put a circle on the end of that arc. Whoops. Like that. Let's try that again. So now we're on this, see how that's in a weird angle to that line? So let's try it again. So let's select the line. Oops. Select follow me and select the circle. Now you have something that's even more complex. Okay. Let's see what happens when we do the scale tool. So that's going to allow you to scale down that edge, but it's only going to go so far back. It's not going to scale it around the whole thing. It's going to make it sort of weirdly tapered at the end, like a hot dog. Okay, so what does this all mean? So there's lots of ways to think about it. I said to a few of you, I said, if you have a bulgy object, you can think about cutting a cross section of that object and spinning it around a axis. So let me show you how I made this, and then we'll be just about done for the day. So I'm going to make a circle. Okay, I'm going to make a line coming up from the middle of the circle. I'm going to make sure that goes straight up. I'll make a line that goes out. I'm going to follow the green axis so that I know I'm square. Now I'm going to make an arc. Okay, and it could be anything, but an arc is a good one to use for this. I'm going to make an arc from here. Actually, I'm going to use another line first. I'm going to make a line down here that follows that same green axis like that. Now I'm going to make an arc from here to here. And I know I've done that right if it closes into a plane. So what I've got here is I've got a path, which is the circle, and I've got a shape, which is the cross section of that. Now I could get more advanced here. I could make, I could make a second arc inside here. So let's take this and make another arc on this surface like that. And then let's erase that. So now I still have this shape and that path. So now if I go to, you guys follow me on this? This is a lot of stuff. I select my path, select follow me, and select my shape. What I end up with is this sort of mortar and pestle shape here. So this interior view, and if I go to, you'll be able to see it. If I turn on X-ray, you can actually see the interior volume and the exterior volume. So what I'm getting at is there are more complex ways to make these, or more interesting ways to make these complex forms. So you have to combine all this stuff. It's not like one tool does what you need. Use one tool to make one part, one tool to make another part. You combine those pieces together, you move them around, you attach them, you put surfaces on them. There's all sorts of different ways of doing this stuff.